The views and opinions expressed during this show do not necessarily reflect the policy
or position of any affiliated workplace or employer.
The views and opinions of this show do not constitute recommendations for therapy.
Please contact a licensed SLP for individual consult
on your situation.
Please listen carefully.
What is communication?
An essential behavior of life. We have the both blessing and responsibility of trying to foster in others.
It's transmitting a thought from one person to another.
It's the strongest way for two people to convey information to each other.
The back and forth between two people.
Communication is a lifeline.
It's just connection with other people.
Connecting people in terms of ideas or thoughts or needs.
Draws us out of ourselves, draws us into that relationship, builds up our families. Without it, we'd be lost.
Whatever it is that we do to express intent and achieve an impact.
Communication is the ability to express your needs, wants, frustrations, and desires to anyone that you feel needs to have that information.
Happy New Year and welcome to Speech Science episode number 168, counting down to the big old 200. I'm Matt Hott, a speech and language pathologist located in Ohio, working with middle school children and adults with dementia and stroke rehab, joined by the PTSD SLP, Rachel Archambault.
Hello.
I'm always worried that I'm going to say your name wrong, so I just
sometimes
mumble
you do.
it in. Do I really?
Sometimes. And you'll be okay.
You should just yell at me every time I do.
I do.
That's okay. You're good. Okay, so then I said it right today. And
You're
then
good.
Our pediatric SLP expert in the great state of Texas, Michelle Wintering. I can't misspell Wintering or missay Wintering.
I hope not. You would be surprised how many people have, though, in my lifetime.
I get called Holt all the time, Holt.
I could see that one because on paper they look similar.
Yeah, they think it was an accident that I crossed both T's. They're like, no, you must have definitely did an L. It is good to be back on air. Today we will be diving in to, how do I say it, Rachel? Trauma-induced care?
Trauma-informed care.
Trauma-informed care. We are also going to be doing our SLP Shoutout, our due process, and also diving into the realm of artificial intelligence. But before we do all that, we love to hear from you, and you can get a hold of us multiple different ways. We're on Facebook. We're on Discord. You can also email us, speechsciencepodcast@gmail.com. We did get a message from Lisa Michelle asking where we've been, and I don't think Lisa was expecting the answer that I gave her. I can tell where I've been on my side. We had strep. We've had multiple illnesses. It is like an urgent care in this house, but I think, knock on wood, we've been healthy for 3 whole days. Everyone has been to school and work this week.
Matt, have you seen the TikTok I've seen shared around by tons of people with kids in particular, but especially just with all the viruses going around? And it has the sign. The dad goes and changes the sign.
Oh, yeah. It's 0 days since.
We've been, this family has been without a cold, virus, flu, whatever, for number of days. And he goes over and crosses off the 2 and puts a 0.
I give my wife 100% credit because, while she gets to be the domestic engineer in the family, the stay-at-home parent.
I love that term, by the way.
Domestic engineer.
Family CEO or.
Ooh, I like family CEO.
Yeah.
I'd be like, after I got dressed for the gym or to work to leave, I'd be like, bye, honey, good luck today. And then you just run to the car and drive to work and be like, I hope I didn't bring any illnesses with me.
Oh. Yeah.
But other than that, I had a great holiday. Let's go with Michelle because Rachel, your what you've been doing leads into our first topic, so I want to delay that a bit. Michelle, how have you been? What any mundane events have been happening in your life? No broken bones, kids are healthy, everything's fine, right?
Yeah. Speaking of why we were all off air for various reasons, right? The fall viruses hit pretty hard here too, but then my kids and I were going to be traveling for Christmas back to Ohio, actually. And that and our plans sort of took a total 180 because my 4-year-old broke his leg in early to mid-December at a birthday party at a trampoline park of all places. No. And super common. apparently I've learned more and more. And just a freak accident. The timing was bad when he landed on the trampoline. So it was nobody, because people keep asking me like, what happened? Was he double bounced? Did he get hit by somebody? And it was nothing crazy. It was, I guess, nothing abnormal from jumping on a trampoline. It just happened at the wrong time. So that was pretty rough. He's doing great now. He scoots around all over the place, which the nurses told me he would do. But that first night, I just didn't believe them because he was in so much pain. And he picked a blue cast, and he will not let anyone sign it because he doesn't want anyone to sign it. I said, that's fine. It's your leg, your choice. And he's doing quite well. The pain is obviously much better. It's been a month, but he'll have it on till the end of January. So I don't recommend broken legs on anyone, but especially children. It's a little rough. But that meant we were in Texas for a Texas Christmas. So we had a very warm Christmas. And then the other big news in my family is that my husband made it home right around New Year's from a deployment. So we were counting down those days. So he's back.
Yay.
I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you.
I saw some of the pictures, and I don't know why, but like I've never served, and my closest family member was my like grandfather. But like any family reunion photos or like video, I'm like, I love this, and I sometimes cry when I watch those. So
don't worry, it gets me. I've been to more, they call it a homecoming ceremony when soldiers come home, and I've been to more than I can even count for friends and family. And I also, I don't know if you guys know, but or if our listeners know, but a hobby turned side hustle, I guess, of mine is photography. So I have a small photography business, and so I taken photos at them as well, and I cry at everyone because it is just like when you're apart that long, finally being back in the same place and everyone being safe is more than you can really put into words. So
definitely.
Well, on that emotional turn, Rachel, how have you been?
I've been okay. I had a relaxing, restful winter break. It was our coldest one here in Florida in many, many decades, I think. It was in the 40s on Christmas Day, which was very cool.
I just have to add, I called it, because that was about our weather for Christmas too, and I called that a warm Christmas.
Right. I was like, weren't you in Texas? Like, wasn't that a nationwide polar vortex?
It
like,
did get down to the 30s. It did get down to the 30s. So
we had wind chills of like -10, y'all.
No, it got pretty bitter here. Actually, we had some pretty cold days, but not Ohio. Go ahead, Rachel. Sorry.
Okay, no, it's all good. I just relaxed really, and I wanted to tune out. Work has been extremely stressful. So there were a couple things that I had projects around my apartment that I needed to do. I put up a shelf. I sold a shelf and watched some TV. I watched all of White Lotus, season 1 and season 2. And other than that, I really just needed to tune out from work and try to do a hobby, I guess. I spent a lot of time with friends, which was so nice. That's about it. My brothers didn't come home. They're in Texas, so they didn't come home for the break. So that gave me a little bit more time to spend with friends, which was amazing. We had the week off of Christmas. So my last day of school was the 23rd, and then we didn't go back until the 9th. So this past Monday, and it was very nice. I never want to go back.
Is your week crazy? Because my week has been off the rails.
Yes, absolutely.
Since coming back from winter break, like nonstop testing and IEP ETRs, and it's a lot.
It's odd in the position that I hold now as a speech program specialist is it's more district issues. So they're sending us to places, and we have our semester training that we create for the SLPs in my district. So that's tomorrow morning. So once that happens, I think things will calm down a little bit, but then it's going to ramp back up again. And I've also been doing a lot of my side hustle for the PTSD SLP. I've been preparing some speeches, and I actually had one last night for the SLP Summit. And I'm so happy to say that that went very well. Last night was the live session from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. on the East Coast. And I was told that 2,000 people, over 2,000 people logged in. So that is by far my largest audience yet. And that was
not to mention all the replays it will have.
Exactly. So the replays are available until January 30th. So whenever this episode comes out, make sure that you log on. You can watch any of the 8 sessions. You can get CEUs for it. But definitely check out mine. And I'm so excited to hear what people have to say. Actually, before we got onto the podcast, I was looking through the chat they sent me. I wasn't able to see it while I was doing it. So I read through every single comment, and I took like such a sigh of relief after that. There was not one negative comment. I was like,
Aww.
Wow, out of 2,000 people watching, like everyone was nice. And I think really thankful. I got a lot of people messaging me on Instagram after and saying thank you, and just, I didn't know about this. I didn't know it existed, and I'm going to use this in my personal life. I'm going to use it at work, and that's my goal. So I'm super excited about how that went.
We're going to dive into trauma-informed care, but that kind of popped up on my Facebook this morning, and I sent that to you in the group chat of somebody had made a post, and then someone else was like, you should go find Rachel's thing on trauma-informed care. And I was like, I know that. Wait, this is
I know that, Rachel. I know that, Rachel.
You don't know her, but you're talking about her. Michelle, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, exactly that you gave that presentation just 24 hours ago, and it's already being talked about in SLP circles and in people that are, a degree or 2 degrees separated from you. So I think it's it's already having an impact. So I'm hoping that we can continue that conversation. I know we will, but I just want to point out for our listeners too, that when you shared that post, Rachel, of the, I'm going to get it wrong of their exact quote, but that this was one of the best sessions, if not the best session that we've had with the SLP Summit, and that it's not just for you as an SLP, but to help you be a better person. And I think that speaks to what you've done and what you're doing. So
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. No, when I saw them post that, I was like, the quote said something like, this is one of the best presentations we've ever had in any summit. And the person that spoke before me was Carol Westby, who I hear is a legend in the speech field. And I woke up to an email from her. So I was like, I am in the presence of royalty. And it was a very cool feeling that more people are asking me for information on this, and it's really cool.
Well, and I like that what you talk about, and I need to listen to this presentation, but just our conversations and what you've taught me is applicable right away. Like the things that you're talking about, people can turn around the next day and apply to their daily interactions and their work. And I think that's a huge takeaway for people.
Thank you.
So I've never been in your shoes, Rachel, but I've been in the moderator shoes or the host shoes, whatever. What can a host do to help a speaker? And then what can listeners do to, I guess, engage more when we're doing some of these online presentations?
What was that now?
So, okay. So you're the speaker, right? And then I'm assuming that they can ask questions in the chat, right?
Yes.
It was a 2 question. It was like one for people watching online CEUs. What would you have liked to see? What would you like to see, or how can somebody help the presenter? Is it asking more questions? Is it more respectful to wait till the email? That kind of stuff. And then more selfishly, as someone who gets to play host of these things, but never doing the presentation, how can I be better to help the speakers in my host job? That was the double question, but
I think it's difficult in this podcast realm because we have to have that back and forth and everything. One of the things from my presentation last night, especially because it's about trauma, what I found in the chat, which I've never really given a presentation like that with a chat open, it was trauma dumping, which was a way for us to feel relatable. And it's a way of saying like, hey, I've experienced something bad too. But then you have all these people disclosing what they've gone through, which other people in the chat might not be able to look at that stuff right now. So I would just be like, I totally understand how you feel, or validating emotions. That must be tough. And that's something that you can do as the host or something, Matt, is just like, yes, I get that validate their feelings. Instead of putting your whole story out there, I had this happen and this happened. It's just, that's what trauma dumping is. It's unsolicited in a way. And it takes, if you're just in a conversation with someone sitting at a coffee shop and your friend is venting to you, it's their time to vent in a way. So then when you say, well, this happened to me, that's a little bit taking over. So I always err on the side of caution and say, let's do active listening, validate those emotions, and ask how you can help. Ask clarifying questions and things like that. I think that's the best thing that we can do.
I love that.
Thanks.
And we will definitely dive more into the trauma-informed care in a moment. But first, when somebody does something awesome or at least remarkable or is elected by a non-voting group of their peers, we at least give you the SSPOD Shoutout. And our SSPOD Shoutout is more of a heads up. The new president of ASHA takes place. Robert M. Augustine is the 2023 president of ASHA. I didn't vote for him because ASHA took away our voting rights. But hey, there's our shout out.
Because it's a pre-vote. We're approving a pre-selected list. now.
Wow.
That's what the votes are.
And I mean, I would love to have Dr. Augustine on the air because we love talking to our ASHA presidents, and there's no shade towards him. It is awesome for somebody to step up. I mean, we had Lisa, right? Dr. Lisa Williams on, and you know, she's done so much for us in the field and for ASHA, and I hope Dr. Augustine does as well. But I can't let my personal feelings about ASHA decisions get in the way of the SSPOD Shoutout. So, Dr. Augustine, congratulations. You're new ASHA president.
Congrats.
Congrats.
Woo.
On the flip side of the shoutout is the SSPOD Due Process. That is your opportunity to bring something to the court of public opinion, or we scour Facebook to bring it to you. And today, I was was it today? Was it yesterday? I was lovingly reminded that Aegis, the wonderful healthcare company, is doing a free webinar in CEU so that you too can learn how to train an occupational therapist to give dysphagia, and then you can monitor and be their mentor while they make money working on dysphagia.
Can you explain that again?
Okay, so what they want to do is that they want SLPs to be training occupational therapists, and the way Aegis, the company Aegis is,
I've heard of Aegis, yeah,
is kind of putting this in quotations. They're saying that it is so that the continuum of care between SLPs and OTs can co-treat dysphagia to allow for better care for the patient. However,
what part of dysphagia? Oh, finish your however.
They want us to train the occupational therapist in what to look for signs and symptoms and how to treat and how to give home exercise plans or whatever we do. And then we would be serving in an unpaid mentor role to the OT while the OT goes and treats dysphagia.
I don't get it. Like, I get what you're saying, Matt. I don't understand why that would be something to do. Like, why are we training OTs on dysphagia and then we're not getting paid? And then like the signs and symptoms, like, I don't know. It just sounds weird to me.
So all I can say is that I know a few different companies on the home healthcare side have been reaching out to their therapists, telling them to cut back on the amount of therapies that they are providing to meet the national average of therapies per month. And a lot of times speech therapy is the one being taken out of home care therapy.
Is it because of our codes?
I don't know I don't know the medical side. I'm just hearing it from different therapists and different companies. And the only thing that I can put two and two together is an occupational therapist can then bill for balance, safety in the home, and then dysphagia. So you only have to pay for one therapy visit.
Mm-hmm.
And the company
my thought
can make
when
more
I
money.
hear that from you is my first thought is because OTs and PTs bill in units, right? Like 15-minute.
Oh, good point.
They can bill more in the same time period, and we often there's only a couple that are timed codes that we can use. The rest are the untimed codes, which means 15 minutes or 65 minutes. It's the same payment to that company. So to me, it sounds like we're circling right back to the same conversation we have, which is insurance and money.
I never even thought of that.
That's frustrating.
Because they'd rather put the therapist in for treatment who can bill more.
I know the conversation has been had, like I said, a couple of the home care therapy or home health care companies around here, they've been reaching out to therapists saying, hey, we should only have 10 visits for the entire month, and you guys have scheduled 24 between OT, PT, speech, nursing, and home health care aides. Can you lower that to 10? Does speech need to be in? Does physical therapy need to see twice a week? So
well, and I know because I guess the debate is not so much. I mean, OTs, I've co-treated with OTs with feeding with kids, and it has been really good
for sure.
And OTs do have a basic, dysphagia training. I don't know to what extent that is. I mean, but there are certain programs even in speech that have more or less training in dysphagia, and then you seek that out after, right? So yes. I know with OT it's similar. I was in the SOS sensory feeding training with a lot of OTs, for example. So I don't think it's so much OTs like taking over as I think it's companies and management.
Oh, I don't think it's OTs at all.
Yeah. Okay. So I was just clarifying that I wasn't sure if the debate was about scope of practice or like OT should be doing this or not, or is it more about what you were saying, like who is actually going in to do the treatment?
I think it could be a little bit of both. I think it is a little bit of scope of practice infringement, but I think it's more, it comes back to like at ASHA where that company talked about how to increase productivity by telling SLPs to carry everything with them. And then this is another sense where we're telling SLPs to train another therapy to replace our job. I think it's partial scope of practice from the OT, but I think it's a majority shame on the companies for pushing this. And I wouldn't be surprised if this doesn't start to roll out in other companies, smaller companies.
Well, and then also just the fact that they're asking SLPs to train is acknowledging that the SLP is the default expert in that area in dysphagia, right?
Yep.
So we're acknowledging that SLPs are the people to talk to, but now we're asking you to train these other people so that we can bill more. That's what I'm hearing.
Right.
I also don't know if this is to address like the SLP critical shortage, and I don't know what that looks like across the United States. Like I know where I am, the critical shortage is very, very bad. And it sounds like they're almost like trying to take something off the SLP's plate and just put it on OTs. Like I don't know if they have a critical shortage like we do, if it's easier to hire an OT, but I don't know if that's part of this, like trying to take something off the SLP's plate and try to make up for the critical shortage. Like let's have OTs fill in the gap of this critical shortage.
That's a good point too. I never even thought of that. I don't know though. I know we're in a shortage, but is it a shortage or is it just a not wanting to hire? That's a whole different discussion. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you have an SSPOD due process, you can bring it to our attention, Discord, Facebook, or email. So let's dive into our first topic. And I'm excited because Rachel is the PTSD SLP. That is her. Is that your side gig or is that your main gig?
I would like it to be my main gig,
Okay,
but
all right,
I need someone to pay me.
All right. Well, when I win the $1.35 billion, I'll bring you onto payroll.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
But
Thank you.
I'm excited because this is why you are becoming a rising star on the national level. Let's talk trauma-informed care. What in general, and of course, anytime during this, if anyone has questions, Speech Science Podcast at gmail.com or our Discord. But let's just start the 1,000-foot view, and then we'll dive in closer. What is trauma-informed care at its basic level? What is it?
Trauma-informed care essentially recognizes that there is trauma, the prevalence of trauma, the effects of trauma, and a way of restoring safety, power, and self-worth. It's a way of preventing re-traumatization. And that is trauma-informed care at its core, is preventing unnecessary trauma or unintentional trauma. So trauma-informed care can be done in any setting, in my opinion, and that's what I've been presenting about recently, that when I've presented at Flasha every summer, because people know specifically what my trauma event was, because it's public knowledge, and it happened at a school, people assume that, oh, I'm not going to attend the session because it's a school-based issue, which it is absolutely not. It could be in your personal lives. It could be in the adult settings. It could be in home health. It could be with little NICU babies. It could be with any population in our field. It can be used. And I think that with the pandemic it's now 2023, we've had in our culture, in our country, we've had such a growing interest in mental health that and concern about mental health as well. And we're looking for a way to explain things, and maybe we're more aware about how we talk about certain things. So trauma-informed care is a way of preventing re-traumatization, is the way that I speak about it.
I had never heard of it as being a way to avoid re-traumatization. And I love that, because as soon as you said that, I think about nonchalant comments that I make with patients, or a question that I ask a patient when we're doing stroke or dementia care. And a lot of times going through their stroke rehab is the most recent trauma. Mm-hmm. And for some patients, I can say, okay, walk me through what happened. And I'm just doing it as let's see what your memory's like. Mm-hmm. And for some of them, it's a very big emotional
Absolutely.
Care.
And that makes so much sense, that even for you to process that might be something that would be difficult for your patient to do, not because they can't do it because they had a stroke, but because the emotional aspect that was a terrifying part of their life that they are still dealing with to this day. And I think of, you hear stories all the time about a neurosurgeon having a stroke, and they were brilliant people. And then now their recovery is that they're doing Sudokus. And when you look at their recovery and what they are able to do based on what the person next to them that has no skills, what we see or what they see, that's still not enough for them, that they want to be back at their baseline. Our goal is to be back at that baseline. We want to be how we were before. So when you're saying look at you're doing Sudokus and that guy can't even do whatever, that's not trauma informed. That's, people are still having a difficult time understanding that they just had a stroke, and that their lives are going to look a bit different. Their independence might look very different. They're living in a setting that they're not comfortable with, So there's all these things to understand. So trauma-informed care is just you stepping in as that provider and understanding the people that you work with might be going through something based on why they're here, but also they might be going through something in their lives as well. And you as the provider also probably have some trauma. You could have experienced some trauma in your life at any point, but a lot of us are experiencing it through our job as well. And some people have PTSD from their jobs or anything like that. And what I talked about last night is just like being triggered. And I think that word is used like very loosely these days. It's just
too much. Yeah,
it is. And I think it's a way of like I hear it a lot in the older generation that they make fun of us, like, oh, they're always triggered, and it's like,
where's their safe space?
Yeah, it is. And it's a way of just saying like emotional dysregulation, like something happened or something, it could be just a noise. So when I talk about when I'm triggered, that doesn't mean that I'm like curling up in a ball on the floor. That just means that like I'm emotionally dysregulated for me. And a way to avoid that with other people is just like we could change our language. We can, just not knowing what everyone has gone through. A lot of people, once they hear what I went through, they're like, oh my gosh, you went through something so terrible, and they understand it, but they shouldn't have to like see someone know their trauma in order to be trauma informed. You should be trauma informed across the board to anyone you meet.
Okay. I like how you said that. So the idea of being that you don't have to even know someone's trauma, because I think sometimes I automatically think that like, oh, I need to shape specific to whatever their trauma is, but there's no way I could know unless they openly choose to share that with me.
Right. And the caveat though is because we have such areas in our field, we could step into a specific setting somewhat knowing or kind of having an idea of what someone might experience. So one example is if you are someone working in the VA, what types of people are there? Veterans, right? So we have people that might have been in active combat. They might have family separation. They might have all these things that have happened. So if I'm walking into a VA, I'm going to try to remove violent language. And I do this every day anyway, that I can't tell you how many times a day at my job I hear, shoot me a text, shoot me an email. And with my background, with my trauma, when I've talked to my coworkers about how like that's just yucky to me, they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, that makes total sense. And they change it around me, even though it doesn't affect me. And they've removed it from their language in general for everyone because of that experience. So when I walk into a VA, someone might have an emotional reaction to me saying shoot or bomb or something like that. We don't know what people's triggers are. So the only thing that we can do is remove things that might cause people some trouble. And that's the way that I've done it with my specific school. We didn't use any violent language like that. Another example is like a domestic violence clinic. They are told, that's actually the first time I heard it was violent language. I didn't hear it before that. So instead of saying trigger to them is actually a violent word. So instead they use the word cue. However, the medical terminology has not caught up with that yet. The medical term is still trigger. So it's difficult to separate that and just say like, all right, everyone use cues, because we're not at the point yet that everyone understands that. But if I'm walking into a domestic violence clinic that many have experienced gun violence, I'm going to remove any gun related figurative language that I've got out of respect and just trauma informed care.
I like what you just kind of said though about how certain things don't necessarily upset you, but they make you feel a certain way. And I think, and you're the expert in this area, but like, it almost seems that a lot of people look at when they hear the word trigger or safe space or changing language or whatever, they automatically go to like anxiety-induced panic shutdown based on a word. How do we in the therapy, in the rehab facility, in the rehab umbrella, help train that it's not necessarily the most meltdown situation? It is that, yeah, it just makes me feel uncomfortable, or it makes me feel extra or outside or whatnot. Yeah, when I think of triggers, it's more of like an invasive memory or something like that. And it's not, or intrusive memory, that it's not something that I can control. So it might just be someone saying a word and
it doesn't mean like I'm brought back to that. I'm not picturing myself in that room, but I am having a memory of a specific thing, and I would rather not have that memory for that. But you know, we can't know what everyone's triggers are. It is impossible. It might be a balloon. It might be like something that's red. Like, we'll never know. So we can remove some things, and we also just need to ask, like, not, hey, what are your triggers and what's your trauma? That's not what I'm asking there. Like, but with our clients that you're building relationships with, Matt, the example that you gave of just like, hey, I'm using like the stroke memory of, hey, tell me what happened. A trauma-informed mindset might be, hey, do you mind telling me about that? Is it too soon or something like that? So it's always, the pillars of trauma-informed care are to provide safety, choice, collaboration, mutuality, empowerment, voice, choice, and cultural, historical, and gender issues. So if you're offering your patient that choice to participate in that thing, that doesn't mean that they're not able to relay what happened in that instance. It's just that they might not be emotionally ready to go through that yet. So you can pick something else.
You know, that's reminding me. I feel like I'll give a shout out to a previous coworker of mine, a music therapist who I worked with, Julie. If she hears this, she'll know. But she was one who had previously worked in a hospice setting, and what some of the things you're talking about, whether she just learned them on her own or like through that experience in that hospice setting, she was the one who I learned from her to say, when you approach someone, especially family members, or if someone has been through an experience just like you said, it's hey, do you mind talking about this? Or let me know when you're up to talking about this, whatever that approach she would do. And then also she talked about even seeing people with their significant other, that sometimes she would want to play music that was, you know, the love songs and whatever else, but you don't even know what their relationship truly is at that point. So not focusing on that, but maybe asking what their preferences were for the music, that instead of assuming that they're this in love 90-year-old couple, they may be, but they might not be. So it was really interesting, but I feel like I want to connect her with your presentation too, because I think she might really enjoy it. And then the second thing I wrote down, Rachel, while I'm listening to you, because I'm going to go watch the rest of your presentation, is relating trauma-informed care, because my immediate thought was to the patient. But now, as soon as you're talking, I'm thinking of every time I'm talking with the parents or the family members, and especially when it comes to a new diagnosis, or they've been through 5 different evals with specialists already, of what those cues and triggers might be for the family members, not just because they're so much part of an eval for children, especially.
Yes.
Is there anything you could add to? I'm just wondering your thoughts on all that. Yeah.
No, that is something that in the last year I've been really, really considerate about, is that I have people telling me all the time, and especially in my setting with the public schools, that they have advocates come in and the parents are so mean to them as professionals. And I have to take a step back and be like, I've been in your shoes. I've been in an IEP meeting that a parent comes in swinging for no reason. And what is the reality that they have a child that they might have had medical professionals like gaslighting them over the years, or they might have had an experience with the public school system that is saying like, no, your child, like not giving them their accommodations or not whatever. So they're just on the defense. So there's a book by Oprah and Dr. Bruce Perry called What Happened to You, and it shifts the conversation from what's wrong with you to what happened to you. So when I have a parent that's coming in swinging, and that's kind of violent language as well. So when I have a parent that is coming in that's already on the defense, I'm like, what has this poor family gone through that they are so worried that we are doing the wrong thing, you know? And nothing might have happened. That's just the way that they think they have to go about it. But I'm also giving them the benefit of the doubt that they've been put through this. And actually my you'll see in my presentation that I talk about the term red flags. That's a negative connotation. So when you have a physician telling a family that their 2-year-old has red flags of autism, that's off the bat a negative connotation to what is going to happen. So instead you could say just signs. Your child is showing signs of it, and that is a much more neutral / positive way of putting it, rather than red flags. And I've talked to parents of autistic children that say that moment of being told red flags was the most traumatic thing, because I just see what my child's life is going to look like. Not the diagnosis of autism, but the red flags was the part that was the trigger. And then red became a trigger. And my coworker can't look at lions because her child was wearing a lion on his shirt when he was diagnosed with autism. And it's like, you're never going to know that lions trigger her as the parent, but that was her experience. So like, you're never going to know people's triggers or cues. You just have to ask them and try to ensure, you as the provider, safety, choice, collaboration, mutuality, trust, with both the parents and your client.
When you mentioned the color red, it almost is the reason why, like, I don't even know if that's what the word I was looking for. I went to a training 5, 6, 10 years ago where they talked about why, when we put on an AAC device, we don't want to put yes is green and red is no, because it's that same idea. And they didn't talk about like it being a trigger, but they talked about it as we relate that color red to bad. So it's almost bad for the student to use the word no on an AAC device. And that's where that immediately went to.
That's interesting.
Well, I had even gone to on the red piece, gone to a training. Wow, this is 12 plus years ago now, for educators. Michelle. And it stuck with me because the instructor specifically gave us all colored pens, but they weren't red. She gave us blues and greens and purples. And her recommendation was, if you're making corrections or edits or anything else, and I've used it not just in the school setting, but otherwise, making notes that, because there is this negative association for many people with the color red, or an instantaneous like failed feeling, even if that's as basic as that emotion is. All right, might make the markings and the edits in purple. Just change it up. See if that might.
Right. And it's little things that you can do. You're not saying that marking someone's paper with a red pen is going to cause them emotional trauma, but the risk that academic trauma is very real. So when you're a kid in, say, K through 12 that is getting red all over his paper and then being put on red as a color for behavior, and then red, over time, that becomes the academic trauma, and then they might have an aversion to red things, like, and we're not saying that dictates like whether they have trauma or not, but all these things combined is what can contribute to it. So it's just being mindful of what we're, putting out there, and us as providers, and us as parents, and us as friends, and everything. Like, I can still be trauma informed to my friends, and I see a lot of my friends going through like infertility and stuff, and I see their parents that are like, oh, when are you having a baby? And they're like, bro, we've been trying for 10 years. Like, and then they're like, whoa, I'm embarrassed because you just told me that. But like, it takes conversations like that for them to realize like, hey, it's not really appropriate for me to be asking that, or it's not trauma informed, because you don't know the reaction that people are going to get. Like, they might burst into tears. They might, we don't know. So it's better to just active listening. And a lot of it is therapy skills. Like, we should be trained in grad school, these skills that therapists are of how to just speak to our clients. We don't get,
skills. Yep.
We need that hugely.
Especially, I mean, I think of, run down a list of, you talk about just the known traumas that we know of our patients, and then ones that I hadn't thought of until you work with that patient longer and you realize that they were a micropreemie and they were this other thing. So that adds into the family trauma and experiences that family has been through since birth and early birth, and a NICU stay and everything else that has led all the way up to sitting in a second grade IEP meeting. So you're getting my brain turning here of how applicable this trauma-informed care piece is to all speech settings and from birth to the end of life.
Absolutely.
I often wonder if the people that are against, I wouldn't say against trauma-informed care, but they fight it because they say, you know, I have my own trauma and I stuff it down inside and I move on and I'm not offended and neither should other people. I often wonder, and I'm playing couch psychologist at this point.
Yes.
That if they are projecting, they are not okay with it, but they don't want to address it, so they don't want anyone else to address theirs. I don't know where I was going with that, but I off the air, I told you guys, or I sent you guys the screen grabs from the conversation. And in one of the comments, it says something like, well, my child was hit by a car and I don't have any problem when someone says, I feel like I'm hit by a truck. And my initial reaction is, you just posted that on the internet.
Yeah.
You obviously have a problem with that, even if you're not addressing it. And I wonder if that kind of leads into the anti-trauma informed care conversation.
And I think that those people that have that outlook of like, I just got through it, or I'm not going to make them change what they say, like they don't know that there's another option. Because if I were talking to that person, I would want them to stop me and say like, hey, just to let you know, like my child did not survive a car accident, and that is like a tough thing to hear. And I'm sure I would be like, oh my gosh, like I didn't know and everything, but I would never say like that graphic thing. And I feel bad for that person that posted this, because I want to be like, you have the right to be angry about that, or you have the right to be bothered by that. Or like when that happens, if someone says that phrase, do you not have that intrusive memory of just not even the accident, or just like a memory that you didn't need to have for that? Like there's better ways to go about things, or like just kind ways to go about things. And I feel bad that people feel that they just need to like get through it. You know, we can still have conversations with people and have disagreements with people and not be friends with people and still have a trauma-informed way of speaking, not cause anyone additional hurt, in my opinion.
Again, I love how you keep going back to we don't want to cause additional hurt. Okay, so if I am a therapist and I have walked into the situation and I don't know any triggers and I don't have anything on paper that is showing the big triggers. I'm not working with a veteran. I'm working with Joe Schmo, who was a factory worker, stroke and whatnot. You know, part of me wants to not change my language because I want to be who I want to be. Is that the right attitude? And then if I upset the person, if I trigger them, then obviously change the wording that I'm using because I don't want to be the jerk? Or is that the wrong attitude and I need to change my wording going in, even if I don't know? Like that, I think that's the question a lot of like therapists, I think that's a lot of question a lot of people have when they look at trauma informed. Do I change everything about how I talk, or should I be more, I guess that's it. Should I be more proactive, or should I be more reactionary, or mixture? Or?
My opinion would be more proactive. I have no problem being myself, but also not using certain language. And the goal is to build a relationship. So if you find that like your client is cursing up a storm and you feel comfortable matching that energy, go ahead and do it. But I'm not like walking in and mine too. I curse like a sailor. But and I love that. Like I found a doctor when I had COVID that was just cursing in the office. I was like, I love you. Like I feel so much more comfortable and everything. Like it just, I feel good about this. And it's providing that relationship. So I don't want you to think of it as like making yourself less or like putting yourself into a box. Like you can still be yourself, but it's patient-led, client-led. So like let them lead you and have this natural bond to things. You can connect on other parts of it, but you're not going to know what their triggers are. And hopefully the relationship that you guys build is that they would say, you know what, I don't really like that, but they might not have the language to say that, or know that that is something that you can ask someone, is to not say a certain phrase that isn't harmful. I'm using air quotes for those of you at home, but like we don't know. So I would be more proactive than reactive, of knowing 6 months down the line you've been working with this person and you find out something that has affected them deeply, and you've been using this phrase that is very graphic to a point of figurative language, and you find out later on that you know, was a trigger of a memory that they did not want at the time. And that's my way of going about it. I think it's always better to be proactive.
I like it.
Thanks.
Well, as we wrap up, because I do want to we'll take a short break here in a moment. Rachel, if more people want to find out more about trauma-informed care or the work you do as the PTSD SLP, where would you direct them?
You can go to my Instagram page, like Matt said, ptsd.slp. I also have a Facebook group that's PTSD resources for SLPs, and I have the SLP Summit. My presentation is free till January 30th. You can watch the replay. So there's some great presentations on there, but I'm always available to chat on Instagram. I'm on it way too much, so.
On the flip side, when we come back, we are going to dive into the world of AI and what does that mean for us in the rehab facilities. You're listening to Speech Science. All right, I'll call you guys back.
The Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council present the story of Cynthia and Ed.
My mother was always very active and independent, and she was familiar with her neighborhood. But one day, out of the blue, she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. And she didn't know whether she should go forward or turn or just stay at the stop sign. She wasn't even really sure where she was at. She was very concerned. It was very unsettling for her.
It's important for you to talk to someone about it, to bring the family in on it. I felt so much better after my son told me, Mom, I don't want you to worry or be afraid. I'll be there for you and we'll figure it out.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Speech Science, the only podcast hosted by multiple SLPs looking at their gray hair in the off time. Thank you, Rachel, for pointing out my gray hair.
You're welcome. It looks good, everyone.
So let's talk about AI, artificial intelligence, in the realm of speech therapy. You guys know what ChatGPT is?
No.
And that voice is Rachel Archambault, Michelle Wintering. Hello, I'm Matt Hott. Okay,
Hi
so
again.
ChatGPT is a OpenAI system right now where you can ask questions and it will write you up a response. And it can write research papers. They've done things on IEPs. We're going to talk about an article about AI in speech therapy. So I opened up an account on openai.com. And I just wrote in therapy plan for disfluency. And this was the ChatGPT's response. A therapy plan for disfluency, also known as stuttering, may include a combination of approaches such as speech therapy. A speech therapist can work with the individual to teach strategies for controlling the rate and rhythm. Fluency shaping. This approach focuses on teaching the person to speak in a smooth and effortless manner. Cognitive behavioral therapy. Communication skills training. Support groups. Medications. It is important to note that the therapy plan should be tailored to the individual's specific needs and goals.
That's so wild. We're at this
Isn't
point.
it?
It is.
And this sparked because coming out of the University of Illinois, led with a consortium led by the University of Buffalo, they've been awarded a $20 million grant by the National Science Foundation to establish a national institute that develops artificial intelligence systems that identify and assist young children with speech and or language processing challenges. It is to help alleviate the need of SLP since there is a desperate need for more. What are our initial responses? Because I am not ready to welcome our robot overlords just yet. But what about you guys?
Can we get a pilot program in Broward County, Florida? Because
you'd be open for this.
I don't know how else to address the shortage. Like, obviously, when you read that, like, there's some not perfect ways of writing things. Like, it's almost there, but like, I don't know what we can do to address the critical shortage area. Like, we have thousands of kids not getting services, and that's not right. So, like,
so what would the AI be doing? The AI would be writing plans, or
so as you guys are talking, I have shared my screen about me asking it to write an IEP for a student with receptive language deficits.
And it just told us no.
Yeah.
It said it's
Did you check
legal.
that? Yeah.
It did. It said it's legal and confidential and all that stuff. That's pretty funny. But it was. I mean, I've seen people writing IEPs from it, so I wonder if they're like, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to break the system here.
So tell them what you're doing, though, Matt.
Oh, I'm putting into the OpenAI.com. I am putting in directions like write a following directions goal for 3 steps.
The first time you said write an IEP,
write
and it
an
said
IEP.
I cannot do that. That's a legal document.
Additional IEPs are confidential
Yeah.
and should only be shared with those who are directly involved in the student's education.
That's really funny.
That is kind of funny. But you could use this to help generate ideas for goals or help streamline that process a little bit, or at least give examples and tell people, hey, build off of this, right?
Right.
So I think it needs some work. I don't know if we're there yet.
Well, that's why they got the $20 million grant. I
don't think we're going to have robot overlords, but I feel like technology is always
look at Watson,
and there's always resistance to it.
Why'd you shake your head when I said look at Watson?
I think you've been watching too much Star Wars and all this that you're like the overlords are coming.
No, okay. I was kidding about the overlords.
I know.
Do you guys not know the Watson computer?
Yeah, I know Watson. Well, that was the one that went against Ken Jennings.
Yeah, but do you know what it's doing now?
Not currently.
It's in hospitals and it's like diagnosing people.
Interesting.
Okay, but why is that? I'll play the other side, Matt. Why is that necessarily a bad thing? If you have a computer that can run through the list of possibilities based on whatever these symptoms are and narrow it down.
So I think if it's used as a tool, it will be great.
Okay, I agree with you. Yeah.
If it is used as the primary interface, that is where my concern is.
No, I think there always has to be a person to be able to override or add to or correct.
Yeah, I'm with you.
They want the AI Institute for Exceptional Education will focus on serving millions of children nationwide who, under IDEA, require SLP or SL services. The project aims to apply advanced AI techniques to assist young children with speech and or language processing challenges. See, that is where I get concerned.
It's very broad right now.
Yes.
Though.
Yes.
Because it's research, so they're going to be developing things, but I don't...
Correct.
There's still going to have to be an SLP in charge of a section of this.
So
but what
this
if
is where they don't say that. Sorry.
Yeah, they don't say that, but think about our licensures and stuff and the legally binding IEP document.
Yeah, but there's no one to license when you're an AI.
So are they practicing? Is the AI computer practicing without a license? Between states now? What about that license?
It says especially the project will develop 2 advanced AI solutions, the AI screener for early identification and the AI orchestrator, which will act as a virtual teaching assistant by providing students with ability-based interventions.
Wow.
So it sounds to me like it would be overseen by an SLP. It sounds like they're trying to do an assistant.
Are they getting rid of the SLPAs?
Right. That's all state
that's why ASHA licensed them, is to avoid the AI.
Did they?
Argument.
Are they officially licensed now?
I don't know what they are.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, that's news if they are. I don't think they are. I know it was in the works.
But no, this is like, I guess I'm concerned because, all right, I love the app Constant Therapy. Okay. I use it with a lot of my adult patients, but I set the homework. I set the schedule. I set the plan. I know my patient. I have my therapeutic insight. I've talked to my patient. I wonder, and maybe this is the old man yelling at a cloud scenario of standing in the way of technology, but like, I worry about with artificial intelligence, it can mimic a lot of what we do in human reality. but it misses some of that human touch that is important. And we were just talking about trauma-informed care. You know, there are some times where I will be using an app that pulls pictures, you know, from Google, and then all of a sudden it's like 1 out of every million pictures is that one you're like, we should not be showing that picture to anybody. How we just spent 45 minutes talking about trauma-informed care. How do we expect an AI to do that? And again, maybe I'm just the old man yelling at a cloud.
I think we don't. Like, if that's my opinion, is that there needs to always be a human component to it.
We have humans that act like robots currently that can't get the
true.
aspect of trauma-informed care, or their bedside manner is absolutely trash. And like, I feel
so maybe
like
this could help those people.
Yes, I feel like some robots have done a better job. Like, they have robots in place, or like, you know, in hospitals now they have like robots that they wear to say, oh, you know, we sense that you're feeling sad right now, take a break. And
yeah, you're right.
Like, they've got these things, but like,
what's the robot?
Baymax?
This was years ago at ASHA. No, for autism. Milo.
Oh yeah, Milo.
Oh, I don't know.
The robot for
yeah, I forgot about Milo.
Gosh, I met him and like we interacted with him.
I've only been to one ASHA, so I don't think I saw it, but I think my entire life I've been told that like AI is taking our jobs and whatever, and I have yet to see it. Like, we've seen at McDonald's, they take the counters and whatever, and I've been to the airport with like a McDonald's that has no person, and it's a nightmare. People are waiting and what, so like, I don't think that it's going to be overhauling the SLP position.
Here's what they say about the SLP position. Thank you for setting that up, and you'll laugh because it actually supports what you're talking about. Maybe the AI Orchestrator is an app that will help speech language pathologists, and this is their exact quote, most of whom have caseloads so large that they must provide group-based interventions for children instead of individualized care. The app addresses this by recommending personalized content tailored to students' needs. It continues to monitor students' progress and adjust lesson plans to ensure that the interventions are working. So
I would love.
I'm not sure I would be involved with that student at all. Then I just hand them to my AI and then just sit in my chair and do circles.
Yeah, I mean, yes, Matt. No. I see a perspective from my district when we have such issues placing SLPs, whether they're new grads or, I mean, veteran SLPs are saying, I'm not taking that population. I don't feel comfortable. Like, I don't have a centralized, my district is not centralized. So they apply with the school, they stay at the school, whatever population is there. So we have schools with cluster classrooms or, you know, special populations that are not being serviced because people, SLPs that are trained, graduate school, ASHA certified, don't feel comfortable going into those classrooms. So they're just sitting empty. So if a computer can figure out how to work with children in a very niche population, I would love to have them. Like, my goal is to have kids having services. That's the goal. So I know we're always having this debate of like, is teletherapy a mode of like, is it good enough as therapy? Is it only in person that should be allowed? Like, I think computers could be another aspect when they get better.
Or it could streamline some of the paperwork and the documentation.
That would be nice. Yeah.
I mean, how great would that be?
Yeah. That's true.
You know, if it could track, we worked on goals X, Y, and Z. And I don't know. There's so much that computers can do, but let's see. What are you typing in now?
So
Matt?
I asked it if should artificial intelligence conduct speech therapy, and I misspelled speech therapy. It says it is important to note that AI should not replace human therapists, as the personal touch and understanding provided by a therapist is an important aspect of speech therapy. Additionally, AI is not yet at a point where it can fully replicate the capabilities of a human therapist.
So we should have just asked them.
What's this website again?
Chat.openai.com.
I read that as OpenAI or like one big word.
Well, I think this is much like this website is much more utilized for writing those trashy novels that I really enjoy. I've seen a couple like fanfic.
Fan fiction ones.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
The one I've seen shared the last couple years around Christmas time is I had a computer watch 1,000 hours of Hallmark movies.
Yes.
And had them write one.
Exactly.
I get a big kick out of that.
Oh man, Matt just typed in, how would Edward explain to Bella about disfluency?
Oh, well, it's pretty close. So in its own words, he would also highlight that there are different therapies and treatments to help individuals manage disfluency.
Yet it had nothing about Twilight, unfortunately.
Well, let's move on to our next topic, where we'll be discussing the impact of ASHA on our lives in a segment that we like to call
What's up, Asha?
What's up,
Asha?
It's been a long time.
It's been
a while, guys.
Very long time. I'll stop sharing my screen. The big thing in What's Up, Asha is, did you guys know that you can be nominating people for the new election?
I did get an email about that, but also I want to be more informed about who my options are, but I guess this is just the nominating part of it.
Yep. Go to asha.org/about/governance/election, and you can click the nominate now. It is for the 2024. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah. So for their board of directors. Oh, and they do have the nominations and election process. So you nominate, name submissions, then they'll, if they like who you've submitted and there's enough, they'll do the application, and then the review board will review all the applications. And for contested positions, they'll have 3 finalists slated. For uncontested, they'll just have 3 finalists selected, they'll do interviews, and then they will slate who they think.
Cool.
So that is open now, the 2023. All right, so as our podcast comes to an end, this is my favorite time to ask you guys my favorite question. What are you looking forward to in the next 7 to 10 days that is not speech related?
I have Monday off for the holiday, so I'm looking forward to relaxing, spending time with my pup. Oh, it's supposed to be cold this weekend too. And cold, I mean the 50s. So we're really excited in Florida. We are so excited. Yeah. So starting, I think tomorrow night, it's gonna go pretty cold. So I'm going to be frolicking in a field somewhere, and
wearing your sweater and jeans and.
Yeah. Some Uggs, probably.
Some Uggs.
Oh, guys, it's going to get into the 40s. It's going to be a low of 41 on Sunday. Guys, that
means Uggs.
Freezing.
Michelle, what are you doing?
Also looking forward to the long weekend and honestly, just some family time. There you go.
I am coaching some more. We are getting in the middle of the season, and I absolutely love this time because it is just nonstop things to do.
Which sport? Is this bowling?
Bowling.
How's your bowling website, Matt?
CincyBowling.com is still kicking off, and we are doing fairly well. We just made a power ranking that I'm sure upset a few people. So I just wrote a ending to our show on the chat.openai, and I'll read that here in a second. Okay. But first, our intro music tonight was Please Listen Carefully by Jazar. It's licensed under an attribution and share alike license. Our bump music was the County Fair Rock, copyright John Deku. Find his music at soundcloud.com/dirtdogmusic. And our closing music playing right now is The Slow Burn by Kevin MacLeod. It's licensed under a Creative Commons attribution license. Thanks so much to my co-hosts Michelle and Rachel for all of their hard work and dedication to this podcast. It's a true pleasure working with both of you. And a reminder to all of our listeners, always strive to be like a willow tree, flexible, resilient, and unbreakable. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Thanks, OpenAI. So long, everybody.
I'm impressed. And
I'm
you didn't
in
even
shock.
say a willow tree.
There's
you said
no
to
way.
be willows.
I'm in shock.
Did you? I feel like you tricked the system.
I did not.
I'm impressed.
Wow.
You didn't even say willow tree.
I did not. That is the perfect way to end the show. Now, if I can say.
Speech Science is edited and produced by MWH Production. Please follow Speech Science on Twitter at SpeechSciencePC and like our page on Facebook. And rate and subscribe to our podcast anywhere you get your podcasts.